Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss fantasy Formula 1. I'm sure you are tired of seeing my face at this point because this is, your third video in 3 days. But it's one of those weekends, there's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things happening, a lot of chaos, and another bit of chaos that we need to discuss. I was quickly just going to discuss Lewis Hamilton qualifying in P19, which will end up being a P18 start after Liam Lawson's 30-place grid penalty, and whether or not you should final fix Lewis Hamilton, right? Quick discussion, should you do it, yes or no? The first thing is, can you even do it? Because if you are like me and you've used your extra DRS, you cannot do it. There is no way to activate it. You can only use one chip per weekend. So since I'm using the 3X, the final fix is unavailable for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of you as well. But if you are not using a chip right now, I think this could be the time to use it, depending on what your team is like, right? I've already talked about the final fix being good for, this weekend in COTA, specifically with Piastri switching Piastri out, considering where Piastri started in the sprint qualifying. I talked about that in my video yesterday, in my COTA in my COTA chip guide video. I talked about that strategy, and I think that strategy still applies, but now there's an extra sort of thing to take into consideration, and that thing is Lewis Hamilton, right? Lewis Hamilton starting from P18 is a fantastic option to final fix, especially for Piastri, right? So let's take Oscar Piastri. He's starting P5 tomorrow in the McLaren. In the McLaren, that is not looking as good as it has. We've also now seen some information come out that they have had to change their rear wing for COTA. It's not the rear wing that they could use previously after they got, the little mini DRS that they had after Baku, right? So that sort of rule, that sort of infringement has definitely impacted their performance, I think, in COTA. They've tried to bring some upgrades to fix it, and it has not fully worked. Now, I know Lando started on pole, but let's discuss Oscar Piastri, right? Lando is on pole. So where do you think Oscar Piastri will end up after today or after tomorrow? Let's do it on MS Paint, because I love MS Paint. That is very bright. I feel like I've written PIA multiple times this weekend, but Piastri in the race, right? Because if you final fix, you get the points of your new asset after your final fix. So his qualifying points don't matter. We're strictly talking about overtake points. And where do you think Piastri is going to end up in the race tomorrow? I think best case scenario for Piastri is a P2 finish. I don't think he's getting past Lando Norris in P1. So I think Piastri's best possible finish tomorrow, unless crazy unspeakable things happen and Lando and Verstappen collide and a bunch of... If it's a regular race, I think the best Piastri can hope for is a P2 finish, which would be 3 overtakes, 3 positions gained, and an 18 points. So that and an 18 pointer, which would be 24 points for Piastri. That is best case scenario for Piastri. Now, there could be a few more overtakes, a few less overtakes, depending on, where and how he pits and stuff like that. But 24 points, I feel like, is the most we can hope for Piastri. Now, is he any more likely than anyone else to get fastest lap? Probably not, right? I would imagine either Lando or Verstappen, whoever would be first into turn 1, would be the favorite to get fastest lap. Or it's someone like Hamilton who would, climb to a P8 and then have a 25-second gap and be able to pit to pick up that fastest lap point. So I don't think Piastri is relatively likely to get it. We've seen and we saw in the sprint race how well you could preserve your tires being in the front. And we saw Max Verstappen setting the fastest lap at the end of the race, at the end of the sprint race, grabbing those extra 5 points there. So I can definitely see something like that happening for Norris specifically, if Norris is first into turn 1 and can keep his lead ahead. I think whoever is in front can definitely dictate the pace a bit and has a good opportunity to set the fastest lap if the person at the back of Formula A does not set it or does not have a free pit stop available. But it's a very long track, remember that. So if Hamilton could just climb up a couple of positions and get to that 8th position, I think Hamilton can definitely start pulling ahead from those Haas's, those Aston Martins, those Gaslys, right? and have opportunity to set the fastest lap there. So I don't think Piastri is relatively likely to set fast lap. He obviously could do it. You can never really predict that. But if I were to predict anyone to do it, it would be either Hamilton, Norris, or Verstappen, whoever is in front. Then again, then we can talk about the driver of the day. We got to take that into consideration too. And again, I think whoever is winning the race is very likely to get driver of the day. I think if Max wins, Max should actually be in driver of the day contention. I think if Norris wins, I think Norris is in driver of the day contention. I think if Hamilton does a great climb, Hamilton could be in driver of the day contention. So again, I don't think Piastri, even in the best case scenario where he gets second, I don't think he's very likely to get driver of the day compared to anyone else, right? There's always a chance he gets it, but I don't think it's something that I will take into consideration for the purpose of this calculation. So best case scenario for Piastri is about 24 points. Now let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, right? Hamilton is starting from P18, and I think it's very likely on a long track there were a lot of overtakes in the sprint. I think Hamilton is likely to climb up to a P8 finish at the least, right? He can maybe even have a chance of overtaking Perez and getting P7. But I'm going to calculate Hamilton going from P18 to P8. A P8 finish would be 4 points, that he would gain in the championship, but there would be 10 positions gained for 14, and a potential of 10 overtakes at the very least. But he could go long, and there could be different things there. But a 10 overtakes, 10 positions gained, 4 pointer would be 24 points for Hamilton as well. Now, this is Hamilton, what I'm just saying that Hamilton's baseline is, right? I think Hamilton will be above 20 points tomorrow in the race, whereas Piastri's best case scenario is a P2, where I think he's more likely to finish is somewhere like a P4 finish behind like Leclerc. Sainz has looked really good, so I don't even want to count him off. But let's say Piastri finishes in a P4 finish. At that point, he's not even close to the 24-pointer. At that point, he's more likely on, a 14 or 15-pointer if he's P4, right? So let's just do a little quick, P2, and then P4, and this is Hamilton in P8. So you see, if Piastri just does okay tomorrow and Hamilton just does okay tomorrow, like this is the okay comparison over here, and that is a pretty big swing, and I think that could be worth using a final fix, right? We've talked about final fix being able to pick up these big point swings, but like even a swing such as this could definitely end up being worth it, and especially if you're someone who put the 2x on Piastri, because then obviously that point difference doubles. Now, what I think you should do even more so is if you did what you did, what I talked about yesterday, which was, have Piastri for the sprint and then final fix Piastri to Norris so you get the Norris on the 2x. I definitely think you should get Norris over Hamilton if you have the money to, and you don't already. So like say you have a Piastri Leclerc lineup, for example, and you have the 2x on Piastri. In that case, if you have the money, you definitely go for Norris, right? Norris starting from the front has definitely potential for fastest lap, for driver of the day. And when we're talking those kinds of points, we're talking up in the 40s, right? That's 25 plus 4 plus 10 plus 10. That's in the 45s. That is obviously in a different realm, and that's just remove the driver of the day, and it's still 35, right? A 35-pointer is still way higher than I think Piastri and Hamilton can even possibly get to. So Norris definitely has the highest ceiling in terms of points. So if you can choose with the budget, and if you planned it like I suggested you should have planned it, if you planned on using Final Fix yesterday, then I still think Norris is the option above someone like a Hamilton. But if you're on a Norris and Piastri double McLaren strategy, similar to what my team is, right over here, if you're on a team such as this, then I think, and you're not using 3x, right? Then I think going for Piastri, even if you don't have Piastri 2x to Hamilton, could be a good option. Another reason why I think you should use the FF is like the FF has to be used at some point. You only have 5 more weekends. This could be the most points you could gain on that. Like a 10-pointer could be enough to make the final fix worth it. And like obviously it is 10 points, and 10 points is 10 points. And at this point in the season, you got to try everything you can. And especially considering that a lot of us have a bunch of chips remaining, autopilot, no negatives, you have to use them as well. And you can only use 1 chip per per weekend. I wish I could use my FF here to switch Piastri to Hamilton, but obviously I'm using my 3X, so I can't. So I have to wait and use my final fix in a future race, maybe in a future sprint. So all that to say, I think the final fix from Piastri to Hamilton is a good option. I think you should consider it if you haven't used a chip already. But if you can choose to go to Norris, I think you should do that instead. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on Monday or Tuesday for my Mexico sort of look ahead video, transfer plans. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you then. Goodbye.